Welcome to another exciting episode of the Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Papergoy.
And I'm Mr. Magazine.
Mr. Magazine.
Yes.
Today, I searched Reddit in order to find a topic.
Wow.
Yep, amazing.
Wow.
And here was the question that somebody asked on Reddit. Why do people expand in volume instead of just flipping more expensive things? Been flipping as a side hustle for 3 years, made decent money and would like to grow. I notice many full-time flippers still mess around with small items worth $30 to $100. Why? It only seems logical to expand by flipping things of larger and larger value, not sticking to the same small stuff, but trying to somehow sell more of it. That seems unsustainable because you'll hit a ceiling of how many you can sell per month, and you'll be swimming in thousands of pieces of crap. If I made 10 grand cash by flipping 300 knickknacks for $33 profit, my next step would be sourcing or scouting items to leverage $1,000 to $2,000 cash that might make $200 to $500 profit. This seems like the only feasible way to grow IMO. I know someone who worked his way up to flipping jet skis and trucks and makes really good money. A lot more than if he stuck with power tools like how he started. Why isn't this the more common approach?
Well, for starters, I'd love to flip $50 and $100 items all day long because I think that's a lot bigger than $20 items that I'm averaging right now. But I think we've covered this before, and it's very simple. Those $1,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 items are not at our disposal regularly. If they were, obviously, if they were at everyone's disposal and you can afford it and being able to afford it and turn a profit, we'd all be doing it. But our daily turnover, we get volume, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 items, and that's the name of the game, and it's long tail.
Well, let me argue with you for a moment.
Sure.
You've got some level of cash, and you have some level of expertise. Instead of going to the comic show and buying out the dealer and buying out his 40 boxes of comics and then taking those and listing those, if you went to a different dealer and used the $20,000 and bought, I don't know, a low-grade FF #1 and a lower-grade Spider-Man #1, you'd have $20,000 invested in 2 comics, and you can turn and flip those for $25,000.
Well, that's it right there. If you're buying bulk, you're going to buy 10 to 20%, 20 cents on the dollar. If you're buying high-grade items, you're paying 85%. So there's not a whole lot of money, unless you're going to flip it privately. You say you bought the FF1 at 85% of eBay. You go sell it on eBay. Well, guess what? You're paying eBay 10, 15%, making no money. So you can't do that. It's not worth it. But if you bought those comics at 10, 20 cents on the dollar, yeah, it's going to take more time, but you're going to make a lot more money down the road.
I actually responded on Reddit.
Okay.
And number one, I said, that's all wonderful. But the way that I do things, if I send out a $20 item and I get scammed or it gets lost in the mail or whatever, I'm out a $20 item.
True.
If I've got all my eggs in the basket of the higher priced items and $1,000 item gets lost, that kind of ruins my day.
And it ruins a lot of $20 items.
And the other thing is, I can make errors. Not that I want to make errors, but if I'm buying all of the gentleman's comic books at the show for $20,000 and I'm getting 40 or 50 or 100 or whatever number of boxes of them, oh, gee, I thought this was higher grade. Well, it doesn't really matter. Right. Because I've got such volume in there, or I can sit there and make mistakes, and I don't really have to worry about it. Whereas I go and I buy that FF #1 and I didn't look at it closely enough, and it turns out that it's been restapled. Sure. And all of a sudden now, instead of being a $15,000 book that I paid $12 for, now it's a $10,000 book that I paid $12 for.
Or the cover's been recolored and you can't tell, but when you send in the grade, they sure can tell. And then what?
Right, yep.
You're going to chase your money? Good luck.
Right, and so, yes, we're all trying to move up the chain. I think that's definitely true. And the other thing that I was laughing about to myself was this gentleman is a part-time reseller, and he's laughing at $30 to $100 items. And as you mentioned, your average selling price is 20-something. My average selling price is 20-something, and I've worked it up to that.
Right. I mean, the problem may be if he's selling $1,500 items and it's not worth it to him and he wants to step up, he may be paying too high a percentage for those $1,500 items, where we may pay 20, sell it for 50. He may be spending 35 and selling for 50. Maybe in his head he's not making enough, because, when I buy $1,500 items, I'm paying a certain percentage. I'm happy for that profit, and I'll keep doing it all day long. Where if he's not happy, that he either wants to make too much profit or he's paying too high a percentage.
Well, and another thing that basically pretty much everybody on Reddit came down on saying what we're saying. But the other thing that was kind of interesting was the fact that he's talking about jet skis and trucks and things like that. Any number of people as well said, hey, look, that's also, you start getting into selling things like trucks, you start getting into the issue where states have different rules about that.
Legalities, you got to deal with the license, the title, all that jazz. And then what else was he doing? Surfboards or something? What else was it?
It was jet skis.
Who wants it? I don't know. Who wants to deal in that? I mean, I would not. I'd have to make a ton of money to do that. And even then, I want nothing to do with that. It just seems too complicated. Too much can go wrong. Do they work? Do they work properly? I don't know anything about it.
Right. And that's the other thing, too, is you have to know how to, you basically have to know how to tinker in order to do that.
If you own jet skis your whole life and you rebuilt them and know how to restore them and this and that, and you know everything about them, well, it's right up your alley. If you know nothing about them, I would stay away from it,
Right. Well, and I think that's the absolutely perfect point. If I have we'll call it perfectly, there is no such thing as a perfectly working truck, but I have a perfectly working truck that's a $20,000 truck. Why am I selling it to anybody for $15,000 or $12,000 or whatever?
Right.
I'm going to be selling it for $20,000 or $19,000.
Yeah.
If I'm selling it to you for $12,000, it probably needs repair. Now, of course, if you know how to fix it, you can make good money. You sit there and you're like, oh yeah, I can make good money. It's gonna, I tear this apart. I changed the head gasket, and I've got a great car, great vehicle now. I put $1,000 and some sweat equity into it, and I'm up to $13,000 into it.
Right.
Now I flip it for 20. Hey, great, wonderful. You made a lot of money for knowing how to fix that.
Yeah.
But you had to know how to fix it, and you got to invest the time. And what happens when you change that and it turns out there's something else wrong? And that's where the risk comes in.
Yeah.
Again, buying the volume of stuff that we buy at the margins we buy them, I go to the flea market and some guy's got magazines for $1 a piece, and I buy them and I get home and a couple of them are missing pages. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
I lost $3.
Right.
Certainly a lot different than losing $300 or $3,000.
And I'm one to take a lot of risks, especially when I'm buying big collections. I've bought them on the blind before. But when dealing with a $20, $30, $50, $100,000 vehicle, if I want to buy one, I'm not going to go from Joe Car Seller. I don't care what he's selling. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. I'd rather buy it from a legitimate dealer and pay 20% over, because now I can have something to fall back on. It's a legitimate company, so... I just wouldn't trust it that way. So how successful this other guy is, maybe he's a car guy, maybe he's a car dealer, he's dealt with cars his whole life, I have no idea. But again, getting involved in things at that level of, $10,000, $50,000 items you don't know nothing about, I would stay away from it.
Well, and one other small thing there too is certain states, I do not know what New York State's rule is off the top of my head, but as a casual person, you're allowed to flip so many cars in a year. You start doing more than that, and then the state comes in and says, no, you're a dealer.
Right.
Obviously, if I'm flipping 5 cars a week, I'm not a casual guy.
Exactly.
I got my car, I got the Rogue sitting out front, and I sell it. Yeah, great, good. I sold the Rogue. Everybody's happy.
Sure.
I sell a Rogue every week. I'm a dealer at that point. And that's where New York State also gets involved. And I'm sure a lot of other states have those rules as well. So would we all like to make thousands of dollars on every single deal very quickly? Yes. Do we like having piles and piles of unlisted inventory? Not particularly. Do we like do you like having a warehouse and me like having a basement filled up with things that haven't sold yet? No. I would love to sell them all. However, it's not just as simple as saying, oh, I'm going to do this. Because I guess the other thing to look at, if it were that simple to move up to selling $500,000, $2,000 items that you're making money on every time, wouldn't everybody do it?
I would think so. Or maybe start your way up, do pallet sale. Buy a whole pallet, flip it quick, something that's trending at, if you got 200 cell phones or 100 TVs and you can flip it quickly, maybe try that. and then get to the next level and say, hey, this is working and so forth. Try some stuff out, but I wouldn't just jump into, vehicles and so forth, jet skis.
Yep. And again, like I said, there are people that I know that make good money doing the higher level stuff. And that's the collectible stuff. That's the comics and the baseball cards and all that kind of stuff. But the other problem that I see, that was wonderful in 2021. But if they locked in some money and they didn't flip it fast enough and they're sitting on it at 2021 prices, they're going to take a beating.
Yeah.
As much
a
as
lot of people have,
Yep, as much as you want to, and that's because markets can go down as well. Has the market gone down on some of the stuff we sell? It has on some of the stuff you sell. Mm-hmm. It probably hasn't on the stuff I sell because I don't even ever reprice anything. I don't really work off of that. I mean, a 1958 playbill of Bye Bye Birdie is worth what a 1958 playbill of Bye Bye Birdie is worth.
You more or less need demand to sell your products. So sometimes there's less demand if people aren't spending money. That's the stuff we sell is the last thing that people buy when there's no money out there.
But if that's a $20 playbill, it's still a $20 playbill.
Yeah.
There's no, that demand curve and that value curve are pretty flat on items like that. They just are. So that's the other thing as well. Yeah, what if I had read this 2 years ago and said, wow, this guy's got a great idea, and I locked in a whole bunch of inventory at 2021 prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be...
Even when the car market was hot. Say you started buying cars and wanted to flip them then, and then 6 months later, they're not hot anymore, and you're stuck with half your inventory.
Especially the other problem with that is, assuming you're buying the car that needs some fixing up, there were problems with the supply chain as far as getting parts.
Right, yeah.
So I buy a car for $12,000 and I think I can flip for $20,000. I can't get the parts to get it fixed. I finally do, and now the market's down to it's $18,500.
Yeah.
Instead of making a lot of money, I made a little bit of money for all my work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
a lot of headache.
That is true. Yes. Well, I'm also sitting out $12,000 as long as it's sitting out there waiting to be fixed.
Yep.
So I'm glad I was able to find that out there. Do comment down below your opinions on that, as well as your take on our take. Do hit the like button if you could, and we will see you next video.
Take care. Bye-bye.